Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Circle of the World podcast, where we discuss Joe Abercrombie's First Law series. I am one of your hosts, Lord Chamberlain Jeffrey, and here are my co-hosts.
I'd like to George.
And Harrison, the Adeptus Historical.
We continue our coverage of Best Served Cold, Joe's first standalone, and the next First Law entry after the original trilogy. On this episode, we review What Happened and Vengeance Then. So, let's get started. As usual, folks, you know the first part of every episode is to thank you all.
We love you.
Yeah, we do. You guys have been consistent. You comment on our Reddit posts. You hit us up on social media. Grateful for that. Appreciate
And
it.
everyone that's commented on YouTube as well. I hope you'll listen to the podcast now as well.
Yeah, the recent comments, nice. We love to see that. And yeah, we will keep it up. I'm gonna bring it up a little bit later, but by the time this episode will have released, I will have already have uploaded one audience chamber video to social media and YouTube, and another one should drop the same day that this episode drops. So, trying to keep to our word, at least somewhat. But yeah, thank you all again, boys. Do you have anything else to say in terms of thanking the people?
Nah.
All right, that was enough.
Thank you.
All right, so as usual, we will start off with our first segment, which is Best Meme of the Week. Georgie boy, that's you. Take it away.
Oh, it's me. For first time in a very long time.
George finally wins. As he should have from the beginning.
Oh, George wins. That's what
as you know, this competition is completely fair. It's always the best or the most upvoted post on the House of the Meme because subreddit every week. And just this week, it just happens to be me, right, guys?
Yeah, but the way you're saying, you're making it sound like you rigged it. But you didn't.
Well, I just happened to sign up for a lot of the memeing every chapter for Best Served Cold. So, which a lot of more people need to do, by the way. There's still untaken slots, and it's like a week away. So, get involved, guys.
Well, explain the meme, Georgie.
Yeah.
Well, it's it's actually pretty relevant to this chapter and pretty much every other chapter in Best Served Cold that's from Shiver's POV. Shivers, whenever somebody makes an explicit reference about incest reference about Monza. It's just confused Unga Bunga.
Or
because he is constantly just like, incest? What's that? And he just brushes it to the side and never thinks about it again.
He's like, my Monza would never. What? I know her so well. She may be 10 years older than I am, but I know her.
Well, and the thing is also is that so far what we've seen in this book, it's been pretty implicit, right? It hasn't been explicit. People have been like, they were really close, wink, wink, and he'd be like, huh? So
to be fair, this is for a chapter that happens probably in 6 or 7 episodes time.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Okay.
Wow. So I'm not going to say explicit exactly what it is, but
you'll see in a month.
Catch up.
Catch up, boy. All right. Alrighty.
And thank you, me, for that meme of the week.
Good job, George.
Yeah, thanks, George. Thank you so much. You did so well. All right, so we'll start off with the first chapter read through of the episode, and it is What Happened. And we start off from the perspective of Nikomo Casca, infamous soldier of fortune, right?
Famed soldier of fortune. You watch your mouth, young man.
Well, here it says infamous, so.
Damn it.
For Adeptus Historical, you get a lot of facts wrong, I'll tell you that.
Oh, my.
It's just how he thinks about it. He's famous.
Yeah, he's famous to me, okay? He's my hero.
Okay, is he? So he's chilling out in an alleyway, skulking in the shadows, watching the warehouse where they, that was their base of operations before Cardati's, and he's wondering, is this safe to go back? There's some people running around with masks. One guy who's pretty, let's say, forward with his advances to this one lady is like, "Kiss me, bitch!" And it's okay, relax. So then Casca decides, he's just gonna go ahead. So he crosses the street. He creeps through the door. He takes a couple of steps, and then he feels a knife on his neck. And then it's Vitari. She's like, far enough. And he goes, oh, I have been undone. And then she goes, oh, it's Casca, of course. And then a little bit of a nice exchange about Casca appreciating her in her previous attire, where she was a lady of the night. And she said the underwear was torture, which I just, it's probably talking about a thong or something. Poor Vitari. And so then Vitari just asked him what happened at Cardati's, because I imagine as soon as she got out of that bedchamber with Giselle, and
bolted.
she was like, I am out. Bye. So then Casca just goes, bloodbath, I'd say. Yeah. And then it caught fire. So I kind of got out of there lickety split. And apparently in his internal monologue, he's talking about how he's actually disgusted with himself, but can't change whole lifelong habits in an instant. So then he asked her, well, why don't you tell me what happened? Because the fuck happened? Like things hit the fan so quickly. And Vitari was able to say, well, the king of the union happened. And then Casca goes, what? And then he thinks back and he's like, oh, that person that we thought was Foscar, the man in the white with the mask of the rising sun, who did not look like Foscar.
And he just happened to bring 12 of the best trained soldiers in the Union with him.
Yeah, Knights of the Body. That would explain all the guards and all the extra guests, right?
Oh, yeah.
Which might I say, I know we didn't talk about it too much in the last chapter, but like that little piece that how he wrenches that in there and how it naturally fits into the world of a wrench into a plan, Joe did so well. Like just having one little change of switching how that it's it makes sense that Giselle would come there. It makes sense how he's behaving. He's not really supposed to be there. It makes sense that he's got a big entourage. It just fits so well into the story. I wouldn't, you know what I mean? Like, it's good. It's well done.
Yeah, really was. All this took was just Giselle going instead of Foscar, and that was enough to change the entire dynamics of the plan.
But you're absolutely right, Harrison, that Giselle behaves exactly how you'd expect her to behave.
Yeah.
He's like, oh yes, I am Foscar.
I'm just here to get my dick wet if no one objects. Anywho. And so then Vitari asks Casca about the entertainers, and Casca goes, well, they're pretty expendable. Have any of them shown their face? None. He goes, well, Casca, he says that mercenaries are entirely expendable, easily discharged, and never really miss once they're gone. But then he sees a friendly over in the corner in the kitchen, and he's just playing with his own dice, and Casca walks right up to him. He goes, oh, 3 and 4, huh? Friendly is pretty monotonous here. He's always monotonous, but I mean, at this point, he's,
he's still working through his trauma right now.
He is, because somebody insulted his dice. And he
I can imagine that's a super serious accusation if you're in prison. And
yes,
friendly is definitely like institutionalized, right?
Yes.
He's that guy. He's like so used to the prison regime and the schedule and the threats from all sides. Like, how dare you say that my dice are weighted? Like I cheat like that? You can't.
On my prison honor, you dare? I find it interesting too, like how Casca is like. Casca is somebody who, like, even though he's obviously empathetic, he felt bad about leaving, as we'll see here in just a moment as we go further into the psyche. But like he also doesn't feel any kind of remorse about the mercenaries or anybody else there. He feels only remorse about having to leave certain people behind. And I can't decide if that's because he lacks that like overall empathy of human beings, or if he's like trained it out of his mind because of the kind of life he's led, or what it is. But it's almost like he doesn't want to care about the people he cares about. He just does. And everybody else he still doesn't care about because he's gotten good at not caring.
Yeah. I mean, I think Casca is just always he's in constant battle with himself in terms of his desire to be a better person. And it's not a strong desire. It is it is a flimsy, very
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah,
yeah,
it's not. He doesn't have a strong desire to be a good
no,
person.
no.
It's
But
more like it's more like he knows that he has the ability to care, and he despises that he does whenever it happens.
right,
But
and he go ahead.
I just gonna say, but like at the same time, like he knows that's part of who he is, and he can't shake it, and he hates that about himself.
Right, and he knows that he like he said he fled and saved his own worthless skin. He considers himself to be not worthy of saving or anything, and yet he can't stop himself because it's survival of the fittest at all costs, right?
Yeah. It's interesting too that he says that about himself, because it does still imply that he is very empathetic towards others, because otherwise the reason he doesn't care about other people on a whole is because he is less than wretched. So others have to be as well. Like in order for him to justify getting rid of those people, he has to see himself as, less than wretched. So that way he can just pawn it off. But he can't do that when there's people he actually loves involved. So
Yeah, very true. And here we see Casca engaging in some possible, you could say, empathetic behavior, uh, where he comments on Friendly's, I guess his the score of his dice. Says 3 and 4. It's an ordinary score, and he goes, "May I?" as in like to roll the dice himself. Friendly looks up sharply at him, which is interesting, and he says yes. And then Casca rolls, says 6, that he wins, that Friendly wins, and then Friendly goes, "That's my problem." That was kind of funny. And then Casca points out some dried blood on Friendly's neck, and I guess they're not really talking about what happened necessarily, except for when Casca did ask him, no trouble in the gaming hall, and then Friendly just says some, and that was it. And then I guess in the meantime of that,
Which is an absolutely wonderful under exaggeration. Though it's just like, yes, so I split a guy's head open for calling my dice heavy.
and I burned the gaming hall down while I laughed.
Well, I don't think it was him that did that. That was the incredible Ronco.
No, of course, but I'm just saying, Friendly's mind probably.
I like you still the Incredible Ronco. No, that was the Incredible Ronco.
I just absolutely love the fact you don't get any of that fucking like massive fight scene with all of those like really cool guys that you brought along. They just kind of like died in the background.
Yeah, we got like fleeting instances of the twins stabbing and then getting stabbed, Ronco crashing into a wall while on fire, stuff like that. But
Yeah.
nothing really long and drawn out.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah. And then Casca, he is starting to calm down, right? All the rush of adrenaline is receding, and now his hands are starting to shake again, and he's trying to think like maybe a drink. And then we hear a voice, the ringmaster for today's circus of murder. And of course, it's Morveer and Day up on the second floor landing, and they're just looking down. Day, of course, is peeling an orange because, of course, she's eating something. Casca, he goes, our poisoners, I'm almost sorry to see that you're alive. What happened on your end? And Morveer just goes, well, our role was to remove the guards on the top floor of the building. We did that with aplomb to perfection, and we were asked to not remain in the building. Matter of fact, we were ordered not to. Seems that our employer, Manza, does not trust us. She was worried that there would be unwanted, indiscriminate slaughter.
I mean that's just malicious compliance, isn't it? Right to the extreme. I'm going to do exactly what I've been told to do, and nothing else. Doesn't matter whatever comes up.
Honestly, I mean, I don't blame him though.
Yeah, I don't blame him, but he's being paid like what 50,000 scales.
He's there to do his job and his job only, baby. That's it.
Yeah, but come on.
Hey,
He's just being petty. He's being petty. He's being petty, and you know it.
Of course he is, but so what?
But I love the fact that characterization is just is so consistent. It's just Morveer is just a petty little bastard.
Yeah.
At all times.
Yeah. And if we thought he was a petty Betty before, we're about to see right now where Casca, he replies that slaughter, by its very definition, wouldn't be discriminate or wouldn't discriminate at least. And the Morveer says, "Well, either way, your responsibility is over. So I don't think anybody would object if you take this." And he tosses Casca a flask. Casca is halfway to unscrewing this motherfucker open and just chugging that bad boy. But then he thinks about it. He goes, "Wait a minute. It's not really too smart to accept gifts from poisoners." Morveer says, "Listen, I haven't poisoned anything there. The only poison is the same one you've been drinking for years. And the same that you'll never stop drinking." And then Casca says, "Cheers." And then he just tosses, he empties the flask and he tosses it in a corner of a warehouse. But he makes note to know where it landed just in case there was still some left over. And then he asks Morveer if there's any sign of Monza or Shivers. He says no, and that Morveer considers that there's the possibility that they might not ever, like they might have died, Monza and Shivers. And Vitari agrees, and there's good chances that they're dead. So they should figure out, like, okay, Morveer says they should figure out a plan to divide the money that Mercado has left here, but then Casca interrupts and says, "No, we wait." And Morveer says, sensible stuff. He goes, "This place is not safe. One of the people that we hired could have been captured and could now be telling the authorities, where this location is." Casca still says that they wait. Morveer, they start to argue a little bit, but Casca he just whips out his knife and throws it and hits the wall a foot or two from Morveer's face. And Morveer goes, "I don't really appreciate alcoholics throwing knives at me. What if your aim was bad?" And Casca goes, "It was. I say, we wait."
That's just a stupid, stereotypical moment, but it's just, it fits Casca so well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's also clear, too, that even though Morveer is outwardly, like, antagonistic towards Casca, it's very clear that Casca is like, fuck you too. He's just way more subtle about it and way more, I don't want to say mature about it, but, like, he would probably be reacting the way any of us would react if Morveer was talking to us that way. But he's pissed off at him. He doesn't like him.
And for good reason.
And then Morveer comments, again, accurately enough, this says, "For a man of notoriously fickle loyalties, your attachment to a woman who once betrayed you is perplexing." And then, Casca goes, "But yes, but I've always been an unpredictable bastard. Maybe I'm changing my ways. Maybe I've made a vow to be sober, loyal, and diligent in all of my dealings from now on." And Vitari laughs. And then Morveer goes, "How long do we wait?" And Casca says, "Whenever I say you could leave." And then they start to argue again. Morveer goes, "Well, what if I decide to leave before then?" And they're kind of sniping at each other. And Vitari says, "Calm down," in a voice that's not calm. And then,
well, and this is great too, because in the audiobook, she doesn't say like "calm down." She's like, "Everybody, calm down!" She like screams it in the audiobook. "Be calm," or whatever she says. It's so great because it in the most uncalming voice imaginable.
That's so funny. Yeah, and then in the middle of this argument between Morveer and Casca, the front door bangs open, and two people come busting through. And it's funny, this little scene. Casca whips out his sword from his stick. Vitari gets her chain ready. Dave brings out a flat bow out of nowhere. And it's not the authorities, though. It's Shivers and Monza. And Casca...
Also, that little line where he says that Dave produced a flatbow out of nowhere. Produced a flatbow is such a silly statement, and Joe uses it so many times.
It's not that silly. It's such a good metaphor, isn't it? You're just like, it's as if they have just produced it out of nowhere. You know what I mean? It's just like a magician.
It's true. I just think that it sounds so funny whenever he brings it up, because he doesn't just say it once. Like, it's one of his. Anytime somebody has a flatbow, he's always like, they produced a flatbow out of nowhere. Suddenly, they had produced a flatbow. He does it all the time. You'll see. I'll start pointing him out from now on. He does it with Day again.
Oh man, I think that is so good, man.
And then as Shivers and Monza comes in, Casca immediately snitches. He goes, Master Morveer was just now talking about how we should divide your money if it turned out you were dead. And Bonza goes, sorry to disappoint. And Morveer, he's pissed. He goes, I am not disappointed. I promise you, stares at Casca. I just have a vested interest, actually, in your survival because the more you survive, the more money I get. I was just considering a contingency to be prepared, which is actually very smart and true. And then Casca can kind of notice that, like, as Monza, lurches deeper into the room, how just all the scars she has from her little tumble with Grand Duke Orso and Ganmark and Gaba and all them. The fucked up hand, the scars on her thigh, shoulder, all that jazz. Yeah, he feels like dismay, interestingly enough. Casca is dismayed by what he sees, all these scars on Monza. Like seeing a painting one had always admired has been defaced. Maybe a painting he once secretly hoped to own. Was that it? He wasn't sure though.
Oh.
Yeah.
Ooh, more Veer vibes. Ironic.
I don't. But we're gonna have to talk deeply about all these, dynamics later on.
Yeah, we'll get a little further on before we dive too much into that one.
I think that one line makes Casca 1,000 times more complicated than he was before.
Yeah, I mean,
yes, I think it does too. Like he doesn't quite know how he feels about it, and at the same time, like him and Mons both have this understanding that they both owe each other, but Monza sees him as more obviously a father figure, and he kind of took advantage of that, and it's implied that he hasn't done anything, but he obviously has thoughts about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but he also doesn't like that he has thoughts about it because he knows it's fucked up, and even for him that's fucked up. So he's like, So it's a complicated ordeal. We'll get more into it later.
Yeah, and obviously we'll talk about it more like when the book's done and everything. But okay, so then Morveer asks Monza, "Are you less than satisfied with what happened tonight?" Monza simply says that we got Ario. It could have been worse. I need clothes. We leave Sapani right away. And she just goes up the stairs, walks past Morveer and everything, shivers, hangs back, closes the door shut, and he just leans against it. And he's just tired. And Vitari mutters, that is one stone-hearted bitch. Casca says, I always said she had a devil in her, but of the two, her brother was truly the ruthless one. Vitari goes, well, it was a compliment. And then we have a bit of a break, and now we're in Monza's perspective. And she's in the room, and now once she realizes that she's by herself, the door's closed, she is retching, her stomach, she's doubled over, she's shivering. I guess all of the after effects of what happened, or just everything, all the effects that you imagine somebody would be suffering after an event like tonight, is actually hitting her now all at once. And she's looking at herself in the mirror, just a complete, like a shell of what she once was. She thinks back to what Bennett had said when he called her a dream, a vision, the very goddess of war. I
can imagine she's going through this very kind of euphoric state where she's finally got a bit of revenge, and then all of this shit, even though she was high as fuck, but then she's been through all the shit being dumped in the river, and then walking back, and then just, it's kind of a letdown, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we've seen her been let down before, but it's kind of like this is now again that it just felt like shit, and she feels like shit, and it's like, well, she's having difficulties motivating herself because of who she is.
Yeah. Yep. And she's not really sure how to kind of navigate it in her head, so she just focuses on cleaning herself up. She washes her face and everything, tries to wash the blood off of herself. She puts on some clothes, a shirt that used to be Benna's. And then we hear Casca's voice outside her door telling her that she has a distinguished visitor. So she puts the glove back on her bad hand. She, she kind of gets herself ready. She grabs her Calvez sword.
And I think this is interesting too, like how she's, anytime we get like a little moment of quiet with her, and it's only when she's alone that she's like this. she is like, I don't know. You always get the vibe that she's just somebody. It's like I'm trying to think of how to say this. She seems so ordinary when she's by herself and we're in her head. You know, she has the same kinds of emotions and thoughts, but as soon as she has to perform, she like is almost
Oh,
a different person.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. She has to put on a persona in front of other people, whereas when we see her on her own, we see the internal thoughts play out externally. Her
Yes.
act, like
Exactly
any,
that.
yeah,
And that's exactly why Joe Abercrombie's character is so good, because every single person is like this.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
every single person, even like on the surface, we've taken the piss out of so many side characters that are just like either really haughty or really commanding when they didn't really deserve it.
yeah.
But each of these people goes back at the end of the day like, oh shit, I really overstepped my mark there, didn't I?
Oh boy, yeah, yep, yep.
And this is also the point that I realized too, like, Shivers just saved her and everything, and not for the first time, and it won't be the last time. And Shivers is probably over there against the door, like, "Oh my god, I can't believe I saved her. Oh my god, she must be so in love with me. Oh my god, how do I get to sleep with her again?" And then she has zero thought in her mind about him.
Uh,
Like, I just think this is the point that I realized. Okay, she maybe cares about him in like a just in the well because it's Monza and we know how she feels about human beings in general. She cares about him in that way and in a weird way as well, but not like truly. And because otherwise she would have spared some sort of thought for him. But no,
well,
nothing.
well, I don't know about.
I think he really is just a hireling to her.
Yeah, well, yeah. Here's
A
the thing.
little bit more. A
I
little
don't
bit
think
more.
I don't think it's a weird way. I don't think it's. I think it's a way. Like, okay, we know Shivers. He's attracted to her, but kind of conflicted about being in the employ of somebody who's all about vengeance, and he's trying to be a better man. Whereas with her, she thinks he's attractive. She thinks that she's
Well,
keep. Well, hold
she
on.
didn't think he's attractive, but she thinks she can mold him into Bella.
Yeah, she's got something. That's what I mean by weird. Like she's got this weird thing where
Right. I forgot about that. I forgot about the fact that the clothes he has on are Benna's clothes. The haircut is similar to Benna. I was thinking more along the lines of like the scene of Valent and Balk in Westport where they were waiting and she's looking at him and she goes, I think we can have sex. And
yeah, it's true.
so I guess what I was trying to say is yes, I agree that to her as of now he is just a hireling, but at the same time when he threatened to leave, she was almost desperate not to lose him. Now, could that be that he is an amalgamation of what she's putting together for Benna? Like she's a stand-in for Benna? Maybe. But go ahead, George.
But we see that from Shiva's perspective, right?
Right.
And we
Right.
know the first time this happened, Shivers thought everything was perfectly normal, and Monza was planning to stab him.
Well, he did feel that though.
Yeah, but he didn't. She could have been just doing the same thing the second time until he agreed.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Is that
But we saw but that last part, George, though, that last part where he threatened to leave, we saw it from her perspective. She didn't think about stabbing him.
Yeah.
I remember that because she said at the end, she goes, "That's the problem with good men. They're just so damn expensive."
Yeah, I think that she cares about him. She likes that he is she's got this unique relationship with him where his personality, not his like looks and mannerisms and his kind of naivety and all that reminds her of Benna, but because of her fucked up relationship with Benna, which we'll address more later, it has caused an even more bigger problem with them because she is coping. She's using Shivers as like some people would call a rebound. He's not rebound. She's coping with the loss of her literal other half, and she's just trying to mold him. She doesn't even realize that what she's doing. Like she hasn't even spared a thought, just like she didn't with Benna. She didn't think about whenever Benna took actions, like whether they were bad or good. She just was like, "I'm with you to the end." So she's taking these actions against Shivers, and she doesn't even see it as bad, even though many times they are. And it's very interesting to see how she does care about him, but not in the way that he is genuine and real. She cares about the shadow of her brother that he reminds her of, and that it makes it very interesting. Whenever real shit goes down, he is left out to dry. Whereas when real shit goes down for him, he's like, "Oh, I have to protect her." It's just such an interesting view of each other. It's very toxic.
Mm-hmm. It is a very toxic thing. The more you think about their dynamic. Um, but let's continue on. Let's
Yeah.
yeah, sorry.
We'll
Uh,
definitely have more to say about
talk
that
about.
later.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Monza, Monza gets ready, leaves the room, goes down, and we see Carlotte Dan Iders in the middle of the room of the warehouse floor, and she's watching Monza, who's trying not to limp to come down the stairs, and she is pissed. She goes, "What the fuck happened? Cardates is still burning. The city's crazy." And Monza goes, "What happened? Well, why don't you tell me what happened? His august fucking majesty, where Foscar was supposed to be." And Eider kind of goes, "Gulp," as she says, "Well, Foscar wouldn't go. He said he had a headache, so Ario took his brother-in-law along in his place." Now, here's the thing that I want to ask. We saw Carlotte, right, at the beginning of the previous chapters, where Monza and Vitari met with her and Casca, and they're on their way, at least Ario's people, right? So she would have known that they were on their way, so she knew by that time that it's Giselle coming, not Foscar, correct? Or do we think she knew after everything, after the fact?
I think she tried to get away with it. She
Okay.
was just like, "Oh fuck it, I'll fuck the day up. If I'm gonna fuck everything up, then I'm gonna fuck it up major."
Right. So then, and the Costco says that, yeah, and Giselle happened to bring a dozen Knights of the Body with him, as well as a lot more guests than anyone anticipated. So what happened? What the results were not happy for anybody. Eider asks about Ario. Monza just stares and says, "Deader than fuck." And Carla
It's
at this
just so
point,
stupid.
yep. But then Carla at this point, she goes, "And the king?" And Monza says, "Alive when I left him, but the building did burn down. Maybe they got him out." And then Ida looks down, and she did admit out loud. She goes, "I had hoped you might fail." And she says that there will be consequences now. You do a thing like this, there are consequences, some that you see coming, some you don't. And then she asked for her antidote for the poison that they had stabbed her with. That's how they got her to, do this in the first place. Monza says there isn't one. And now Carlotte panics. She goes, "I cut my side of the bargain." And then Monza goes, "Relax. There was no poison. We just stabbed you with a dry needle. You're free." And now Eider goes, "Oh, free, you say? Free. Well, Orso's not going to rest until he's got me. Maybe I can keep ahead of Orso, but I'll never keep ahead of the cripple. I let him down, and I put his precious king in harm's way. He's not going to let that pass. He never lets anything pass. Are you happy now?" And then Monza goes, Monza goes, "You talk as if there was a choice. Orso and the rest die, or I do, and that's all. Happy isn't part of it. So you better start running." And as Monza turns away, and then Carlotte says, "I sent a letter." And Monza stops, looks back, goes, "What?" As Carlotte says, "Earlier today, I sent a letter to Grand Duke Orso. I was kind of passionate when I wrote it, so I kind of forget exactly what I said, but I know I mentioned Shiloh Vitari, and Nicomo Casca, and Manzer Mercado, And then Monza frowns. She goes, "Mercado." And Carla goes, "How much of an idiot do you think I am? I know who you are, and now Orso will know too that you're alive and that you killed his son and that you had help. Petty revenge, perhaps, but the best that she could manage." And
I find it so interesting that she does this, like, because of her situation. She's always been like, she's pretty clever and smart, but she always lets her like emotions get the best of her. She did the same thing with the Galacta, where she was like, "Oh, you let me go, okay, cool," and then she went back to Adjua and was like, "Well, I'm still in the game." And Galacta was like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And she just did the same thing here. She's pretty smart, but then she always has this lash out issue. Like, she didn't tell them. That would have been the smart thing to do, right? I mean, am I not thinking about this the right way? Like,
what?
just not even tell them that she was like, just like with Galactus, she shouldn't have never told him she was back in Adjua. And same thing here. She should have never told him what was going on. She should have tried to get the antidote. "Oh, I'm free to go. Okay, bye." But she doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, revealing it to them is extremely, but it's just that's so Carlotte that right? She always just spills the beans.
Yeah, she's smart, and then when she gets frustrated, she wants she wants to come out on top in some way. She wants
Yeah.
recompense, do you know?
Yeah.
And I will say,
I mean, if she thinks she's actually gonna die, like from Glockter or from Orso or from whatever, then it's just like, yeah, whatever, fuck you, kill me now. You know, I think
Yeah.
that's defiance. You know,
yeah. So let me ask you, in that with that kind of same mindset, think about it. All right. So if the both of you, if you were each of you were Carla, right, in her situation, right after she meets Monza, Vitari, and Day, and she gets stabbed, right, with the needle. Do you help them, or do you pretend to help them but tip off Orso and them? I know what I do, but I want to know what you guys would do.
I mean,
I don't think anybody knows until they're
Well,
put in the
not yeah, not
situation.
knows, but you what I say I
What
know.
I'd like to do is just
Yeah.
fucking just kill them all anyway.
Nah. All right. What
and
I would like to do, or hope that I had the balls to do, right? It would be I would let Orso know. I would let Orso know. Be like, listen, this is about to happen. They plan to do it on this day. If you want, surround them this night. Blah blah blah. Because you can't really trust that Monza is going to give you the antidote. Think about it. If Monza's on a quest for blood, they're doing this in secrecy. You technically can't. There's a very very good chance that Monza will want to get rid of any loose ends. And Carla is a loose end as soon as she's privy to the plan.
it's yeah, okay, yeah, it's a weird thing for me. I want to be able to tell Orso, right? Because he's too far away and it happens within like a week. But
Mhm.
you would be able to tell Ario, and obviously she has Ario's ear and trust. So that would have been the play I went with. But of course, there's the caveat of the poison. She didn't know that it wasn't real.
No, right, but I'm saying you
So
can't. So you can't trust that she's going to give you the antidote anyway. So you kind of have to think you're probably dead
that's the better
anyway.
fuck you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like you're better. Like you're probably dead anyway. Then.
Yeah. And
You,
plus, she's probably better off with Ario anyways. Ario's,
yeah. Because if not, if she aligns herself with Monza, not even allies herself with Monza, but she does what Monza says, as we see here. She not only pisses off Grand Duke Orso by the murder of his son, right? But she pisses off Glockta, who you do not want to piss off.
Really, I think like you're gonna do all this stuff anyway, and then just go back to Glockter and be like, "Well, I fucked up." Just because Glockter's pragmatic, and she knows better than anyone that Glockter's kind of reasonably reasonable.
I know what you're saying, right? But I think you guys are right. I think that she lets her. It's very call it denied. Like it reaffirms the fact that despite her being fairly smart, she hasn't learned from her actions. She didn't learn from fucking with Glockta because we meet Monza, and instead of doing something else or not telling him, she decides the best route is to play along, let him die, and then say, ooh, fuck you, and then taunt Monza basically. Now, there is an implication here that she wants to die, but doesn't want to kill herself. So she's telling Monza in hopes that she would kill herself, which is why Monza's like, yeah, I'm not going to give you that satisfaction. Plus, you're not in my revenge plan anyway, so fuck you. So there is the implication there.
I think at that point, yeah, but I think the taunt is more of a revenge thing, just a theme,
Yeah.
right?
It just shows that she doesn't learn.
It's on theme that she doesn't learn, but it's ambition. She is ambitious as a character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's foolishly ambitious, though.
Yeah, she thinks. Well, what could I get out of this?
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know about foolishly ambitious. I think she is intelligent. She knows how to approach things. She assesses her situation correctly. Maybe quasi in the moment, but also kind of like a short term, long term thing. But it's when something unexpected occurs, or maybe like didn't expect to not get an antidote, or maybe she didn't expect for Cardates to burn down. So it is going to be very very clear as day that she was involved. In that moment, I think it's hard for her to beat down her emotions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it probably would be in the moment, to be honest.
Yeah. I don't think anybody would have an easy time controlling their emotions. But
anyways, I just think her character's interesting when she takes actions.
Carla is a fantastic character for sure. So then we also where did I leave off, boys?
Oh, that she basically told.
She said, yeah, okay. So then Monza goes, Oh, revenge. Yep. Well, everyone's doing revenge. But it would have been better if you hadn't done that. And Carlotte goes, "What? Are you gonna kill me for it? I'm already dead, basically." And then Monza goes, "Well, then why should I bother? You're not on my list anyway. You can go." Which is a moment of, I want to say, oh, what's the word I'm coming? My brain is farting. Not peace. It's
She's been practical.
No.
Well, she is in a different sense, but you keep thinking of that word, Jeff.
Fine.
But she's been practical in the sense that
She's very gracious.
you know, she's already done the damage, and there's literally no benefit from killing her, and she doesn't owe her anything. And
Right.
hell, like you said, it's really justifiable for her to try and get revenge on Monza by doing that little thing, by sending in a letter.
Yeah. Well, and either way,
I actually, the reason this is weird for me is because I don't understand why Shiloh Vittori is not more worried about this, considering. Yeah, because of the kids.
Yeah.
Well,
we don't see it right now. We don't see it right now.
I will say also, well, to Shiloh's credit, she is very calm with this kind of pressure, and she's not going to let on that she's fearful. You know, she would not let anybody know she would not give him any room to kind of be like, "Oh God, what about my kids?" No weakness can be shown. In addition, she's probably got a lot of contingencies because she's very well thought out and planned. She probably thought that this might happen anyways. Yeah. And number 3, I don't think she is as worried. She probably knew to a certain degree that Carlotte was going to do something foolish like this. So she kind of knows, because she definitely knows how Carlotte works at this point now, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And then Monza she goes, "Aren't you going to wish me luck?" And Carlotte goes, "What?" And Monza goes, "Well, the way I see it now, your best hope is that I do kill Orso." And Carlotte goes, "Some fat fucking chance of that." And then she just leaves. And that's the end of the chapter. So, boys, how do you rate it?
I think I'll move this one a 6. A solid 6.
Solid 6 out of 9.
And again, it's another one of Joe Abercrombie's famous one-room chapters. Like, everything just happens in this one room.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
Very true.
But it's just all of the interactions are so fiery and snappy, and they're just there, you know, and you're there for the whole thing. You just imagine it so well just from reading it on the chapter, or if you prefer the audiobook. It's good.
What about you, Jeff?
Yeah, I'd give it I'm vacillating between a 6 and a 5, so I'll give it a 5 and a knuckle.
Vacillating.
That's a what?
Yeah, I was wondering the same thing, George. I wasn't gonna say anything, but now that you said
I think you mean oscillating.
No, vacillation is a word.
Oh,
yeah,
God.
I think you mean oscillating.
Sorry, audience. We're gonna have to this one. We're gonna have to address right here, right now. Vacillate.
Okay, look it up. Look it up. Oh wait,
it's a VAC.
VACILLATE.
Oh, well, we got fucked. Hey, George, you're supposed to be the smart one. I have an excuse. I was homeschooled.
What is that?
You guys forget that not only am I older, I have read hundreds of books and I'm smart.
Not only am I old,
smart.
You're like Darth Vader. You're like, you don't understand me. I am a god.
Just because like I talk like an ignorant hood booger doesn't mean I am an ignorant hood booger. Anyway, I vacillate. Okay, so now
it just sounds sensual. Okay,
George is gonna have to edit all this out. Anyway, so
I was vacillating between the ass and the pussy.
Yeah. Well,
I genuinely thought the other thing though. You were going between two things.
No.
Oscillating.
No, vacillating. No. There you go. Anyway, yeah. So I think I'm gonna do. Yeah, I think 5.5 and a knuckle is the route I want to go for the score. I think we get. This is the final chapter. Final chapter of this little part of Sapani. We get not necessarily closure. We just see, okay, the ramifications, at least the very immediate ramifications. Carlotte's decision, Morveer and Casca's escalating feud, we could say. Monza's return, her internal self-hatred in a way, or self-disgust, seems like. Both her and Casca have self-disgust over how the night turned out. And then we start to move out. We're about to go somewhere else. We're leaving Sapani. Don't know. And it all transpired in one chapter. It's just kind of just bringing the team back together before we head out. So 5 and a knuckle for me.
Yeah, I reckon I give it a 5. Same reason you guys said. Don't have much to add there.
Oh, sequential score. Yay. George gave it a 6. I gave it a 5 and a knuckle, and you gave it a 5.
Yeah, we know what sequential means. Just.
Okay, well, you were quiet, fucking asshole.
Well, we didn't know what bachelor means. So.
You didn't know what bachelor means.
Vacillating is a new one. That is a new one. Word of the day. Somebody put a sound effect in there.
It just sounds, you know.
All right, well, Harrison, you want to say anything else about your score?
No, you guys said everything. You stole everything. I'm just kidding.
It's fun. It's a fun chapter. It's snappy. It's interesting. I love how Day just produces a flat bow.
She'll do it again. I'll point it out. She'll do it again. Many people will.
She's a lot more competent than people think she is, I think.
Yeah, for sure. She definitely has a lot more. She's a young woman in her 20s, not a young woman, not a 14-year-old.
Yeah.
So we'll move on straight to our second and final chapter read through, just because of the way our character spot and community interaction segments are kind of set up. So we start off with part 4, Visserine, and the usual little pre-chapter segments. This is talking about Nakomo Casca and his time as 1,000 Swords. And what they've done, they fought for Osprey against Muris. They fought for Muris against Sapani. They fought for Sapani against Muris. And then for Osprey again. They just keep going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. They plundered, they sacked. They fought for everyone against no one and no one against everyone. And they barely did any fighting, actually, at all. So Nakomo Casca has surrounded himself with the curious that he might seem strange and romantic. And one of them would happen to be a 19-year-old swordswoman, inseparable from her younger brother, and he kept them close. At first, he found them interesting, then useful, then indispensable. And he and Monza would spar together a lot, get some practice sword fighting in, and they would, everyone would laugh to see, Nakomo kind of get bested by a girl half his age. Often as not, everyone laughed except Benna because he was no swordsman. But Benna was good with numbers, and he took charge of the company's books and the buying of stocks and management and resale and distribution, all this stuff. And since he made money for everyone, and he was a pretty easygoing guy, everyone pretty much loved him. Monza, on the other hand, learned quickly about Stolicus, Riturio,
Bialoveld. Who we know is Baez, by the way.
Yeah, Baez. And Farans. She had learned everything that Casca had to teach her. She learned a lot about tactics, strategy, maneuvering, logistics, how to read the ground and read an enemy. She learned by watching them, by doing, and she learned everything that needed to, one could learn by being a soldier or what it meant to be a soldier. And Casca would tell her, from time to time that you have a devil in you. When he was drunk, which was often. She saved his life at Muris, and then he saved her life. And then old Sazine died of an arrow, and they decided that Casca should be the captain general. And Monza and Benna went with him as like his second in command, I guess you could say, or his right-hand people. And she carried Casca's orders, and then eventually she told him what his orders should be. And then she just started giving orders while he was drunk and pretended that they were his orders. And then she stopped pretending that they were his orders, and no one minded because her orders were better than his would have been, even had he been sober. And he was sober less and less as the years went by, and the only orders he actually gave at that time were in the tavern, and the only sparring he did was with a bottle. And Monza would, search for him throughout the taverns whenever they had to go through a battle or skirmish or just did a campaign, and she would just drag him back from the taverns, the smokehouses, the brothels. She hated to do it. Benna hated to watch her do it, but Casca still had given them a home, and they owed him. So she kept doing it. And no matter what, as they stumbled back together, Casca would always whisper in her ear, Monza, Monza, what would I do without you? That's the end of that little
I love that little section. I know we're not like, doing a whole, there's not like a review on it or anything, but like I love the way that's laid out. Like he covers, he did it before in these other groupings, but this is my favorite one because it gives you so much information on the kinds of people that Monza and Casca were and are, and how they influence each other, and from their other interactions and stuff as well. It just provides a lot of context that we seem like we were kind of missing, and you know this Monta, what would I do without you? It's
the same thing that a dad says as well.
And the same thing that Orso said, isn't it?
Oh, I know.
It's really, really, really good. It's these men, and again, we mentioned at the beginning, Joppo is the only one who said it not because he actually was like, oh, what would I do without you, but because he genuinely loved her.
Yeah.
And I think it's the foundation for herself as a person. But it's so interesting that he has this happen over and over again. This little thorough through of these shitty men saying, "Oh, what would I do without you?" Because she hates that.
Yeah, very, very astute observation there. Do you want to say anything else about that little segment, Harrison? I know you really like him.
No. I just it covers the time frame so well, and it gives us perspective on how Monza got to where she was, and you could see how after several years of her basically being in charge anyways, why she became in charge later. We'll get more details on that later.
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil it yet, but it definitely, even without the other context and how she actually felt about it, it definitely gives you more like understanding of, oh, okay, I can see why somebody wanted to put Casca out of his place if he was taking advantage of her like that.
George, you want to say anything before I move on?
I just think it's a fantastic kind of commentary on how power corrupts people. He's always had this vice, but now that he's in power, he can indulge it literally 24/7, and nobody does anything about it.
Right. Because when Cezine had depended upon him, that limit to him in terms of like the freedom, in terms of getting super drunk all the time. Yeah, I see what you mean.
And it's true right now, I would say as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're right. Casca is a very good
second.
He
might be the best second out there.
Yeah, he's a very good colonel, lieutenant, maybe a platoon leader, whatever. But in terms of a general, is when he's out of his game.
Yeah.
Oh, that really reminds me of a Ghost chapter in The Heroes, but we'll get to that.
We will eventually. So we move on to now officially our second chapter read through, which is Vengeance then. And we come from the perspective of some guy named Shanked. And he meets a Chamberlain, and he meets General Ganmark. Okay, so we're near Grand Duke Orso's vicinity, at least we assume. And he walks through this location with echoing chambers and whatnot.
Like an antechamber, isn't it? A small chamber just to precede the bigger chamber.
Right. And then, the Chamberlain is just spouting off stuff. He goes, upon entering the presence of His Excellency, you advance towards him without undue speed, looking neither right or left, your eyes tilted down towards the ground, and at no point meeting those of His Excellency. You stop at the white line upon the carpet.
You're doing a great job, Jim.
Not before the line, and under no circumstances beyond it, but precisely at the line. You then kneel. I do not kneel. Only the heads of states of foreign powers are. I'm sorry. It's just this Chamberlain's hilarious to me. He's so funny.
That's incredible, Jim. That's incredible.
You really almost did exactly what Pacey did. You don't even understand. Yeah, that's why it's so great.
I'm sorry. I just think it's hilarious. And then Shanked, he repeats himself. He goes, I do not kneel. And the Chamberlain gasped with the outrage. But Ganmark just goes, fuck's sake, man. Orso just lost his son. All right. He does not give a shit whether this guy kneels unless he can bring him vengeance. And then Ganmark looks at Shanked. He goes, kneel or not, whatever. So then they go through the antechamber. They go through the actual chamber, like George said. And it's a throne room fit for the most powerful man of Styria. But Shanked had stood in greater rooms, apparently, before greater men. Interesting. and had no awe left in him. Who is this guy named Shanked? And then
He's definitely confident. He's definitely confident.
oh yeah, my man has balls. And upon the days was a golden chair, and within the chair was Grand Duke Orso of Talons, and he was dressed all in black. For mourning or to be a sinister man, but his frown was blacker still. And and then besides Orso, we have a unique assortment of people. About 3 score or more, if I'm not mistaken. A score is what, a dozen or 24 people? A score is a dozen or 24?
Score is 20.
20, that's it. So we have 60 people, about, all races, sizes, and shapes, which is interesting. What kind of shapes are we talking about? But anyway, and they're all they're kneeling before Orso and his people in a semicircle, and Shank can guess that they normally carry weapons, even though they don't have any right now. So he knows, that these are killers and assassins, hunters of men.
Rough and tumble lot, as Crocker would say.
Yeah, rough and tumble. And these are the same people in his own profession. So interestingly enough, he knows some of them by sight, but he knows that this is a group of assassins, and he's also an assassin. And I like how he's not speaking to himself. This is the narrator of the chapter, which is himself narrating. But he does exactly what the Chamberlain said. He advanced towards the days without undue speed, not looking neither right nor left. He passed through the half circle of assorted murderers and stopped precisely at the line. And then he watched General Ganmark stride past the guards to whisper into Orso's ear, while the Chamberlain took up a disapproving pose at his other elbow. And then Orso looks at Shank for a while. Shank stares back. And then Orso says, "Why is he not kneeling?" And Ganmark goes, "Apparently he doesn't kneel." And Orso goes, "Well, everyone kneels. What makes you special?" And Shank just says, "Nothing." So he goes, "But you do not kneel." He goes, "I used to a long time ago, but no more." And Orso goes, "What if a man tried to make you?" And Shank goes, "Some have tried." And Orso goes, and I do not kneel.
Oh,
That's pretty badass.
Yeah,
so badass.
And then Orso goes, "Stand then, I don't care. My son is dead." And the Shank goes, "You have my sorrow." He goes, "You don't sound sorrowful. He was not my son."
Oh!
And I like the next part. The Chamberlain nearly choked on his tongue. I imagine he goes, but Orso, he didn't mind. I guess he goes, "Oh, you like to speak the truth? I see. Blunt counsel is a valuable thing to powerful men. So you come to me with the highest recommendations. Something that happened in Keln. I understand that was Shank's work, his work alone. And it is said that the things that were left behind could hardly be called corpses." Shank doesn't say anything, and he goes, "You do not confirm it." Shank still doesn't say anything. He goes, "You do not deny it, though." Shank still doesn't say anything. So it's all right. This man doesn't like to talk. And then Orso he has to fill in the space.
He's like the main character in like a RPG game where it looks like you don't say anything, but you're saying something.
Yep. And Orso, like I said, he has to fill in the gaps. He goes, "I like a man that doesn't talk a lot. He doesn't say anything to his friends, will say less than anything to his enemies." Shank still doesn't say shit. And then Orso goes, "Well, my son is murdered, thrown from the window of a brothel. Many of his friends and associates were also killed, my citizens. My son-in-law only just escaped the burning building with his life. Sartorius, the half-corpse Chancellor Sapani, who was their host, wrings his hands and tells me he can do nothing. I am betrayed. I am bereaved. I am embarrassed." And he's mad at this. This is the part that really bothers him.
Embarrassed is such a fucking choice word, isn't it?
Really. Yeah, really
He
is.
doesn't really give a shit. He doesn't really express any love towards Arya.
Yeah, because Ario, we could tell from the outset, from that very first chapter, Orso is just, this guy, he just doesn't have what it takes to be the true heir, kind of.
On the same note as well, he says, "Yeah, Arya was killed. His entourage, citizens that are my citizens were killed. So we have to do something about this." And then, in just a little bit, I don't think it's a spoiler to say, Shank says, "Well, there's going to be some collateral. Some of your citizens might get killed." And he says, "Yeah, whatever. Just do whatever it takes." So, in between that and knowing how he feels about Arya, this is really just for him and his pride.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. And so then Shanked, well, everyone flinched because Orso screamed. It was, I'm embarrassed, me. Everyone flinched except Shanked, and then Shanked says, vengeance then. And Orso is, yes, vengeance, terrible vengeance, swift and terrible. And then Shank says, swift, I cannot promise. Terrible, yes. Like you said, Harrison, he does say it may be necessary to cause some harm to your subjects and their property. And then he goes, whatever it takes, bring me their heads. Every man, woman, or child involved in this, which is funny that a child would be involved in this, to the slightest degree, whatever is necessary, bring me their heads. He goes, all right, their heads then. And he said, and then Orso asks him, what will be your advance? And Shank says nothing. He doesn't even want any. He goes, if he completes the job, then Shank says, if I complete the job, you will pay me 100,000 scales for the head of the ringleader and 20,000 for each assistant to a maximum of 250,000. That is my price. And the Chamberlain, he chokes again. He goes, a very high one. What will you do with so much money? And then Shank goes, I will count it and laugh while considering how a rich man need not answer the questions of idiots.
You know who that line sounds like? It
Who?
sounds exactly like something Bias would say.
Yeah, it does
Like
sound
exactly. Like Bias would totally say that shit to somebody trying to be sassy. He's such
Very
a sassy bitch.
very true, very true.
I never thought about it that way. That's brilliant.
No, that's very true. And Shank, he continues on. He says, you will find no employer anywhere unsatisfied with my work. You could pay less to lesser men, if you please, while looking at everybody else in the fucking half circle. And then Corso says, yeah, I will, if one of them should find the killers first. And Shank goes, I would accept no other arrangement. He goes, good, bring me revenge. And then the Chamberlain goes, you all are dismissed. And then I like that everyone's turning.
I wonder how long they were waiting for him.
I wonder.
That all those mercenaries, all those assassins, just like knelt around in a circle for like a day.
Yeah, maybe.
Just waiting for this guy to turn up.
Possibly. Yeah, and then they all turn to leave. Shank turns to leave, and then one of the assassins blocks his path, and he goes, "You're shanked. I expected more." And Shank goes, "Pray to whatever God you believe in that you never see more." And then the guy goes, "I don't pray." And then Shank leans in and whispers in his ear, "I advise you to start." Okay, we don't know who the Shanked is, but he's a spicy man. He's a spicy sort. Ooh, and then we get a little bit of a break in this chapter, and then we are in General Ganmark's study, and it's a big ass room, but it does feel cluttered, at least to Shank's point of view, because Ganmark likes his art. Apparently, we have an oversized bust of Juvens. We have some colored Visserine glass, two monumental vases on either side of his desk, and his walls are covered in paintings, very fine paintings. Shank says very most impressive collection, and then Ganmark does what an art collector would do, immediately talk about all of them. He goes, that one is by Collier. It would have burned in the mansion in which I found it. And these two are Nancerens. That's by Orchus, his early period, but still. Those vases were made as a tribute to the first emperor of Gurkul many hundreds of years ago, and somehow found their way to a rich man's house outside Capril. And then Shank is basically just like, from there to here. And Ganmark, it's funny. Ganmark, he goes, I try to rescue what I can. Perhaps when the years of blood end, Styria will still have some few treasures worth keeping. And Shank accurately says, or you will. Go ahead, George.
I actually think that's really interesting. The point that Joe makes here is that a lot of the Renaissance paintings that we have from 16, 17, 1800s have been recovered just because they were rescued when whatever city, attacking the city or something like that, and that's why they are treasures.
Right? Can you imagine a general that really cared about this kind of stuff? He goes, "All right, men, go ahead and pillage, rape, and murder men, women, and children. But the paintings, bring them to me. Don't touch the painting."
I can absolutely see a human being saying that. Yes.
No, that's absolutely 100% something that's happened.
God will
in every single war ever.
For real, seriously. And we can see this reflected, George, in what Ganmark says next. He goes, "Better I have them than the flames."
And I will say, he's not really wrong.
Yeah, but you were the one that caused the flames, asshole.
Yeah, no doubt. As even Ganmark says here, right? Like, he expects you to kind of be a good man, and what is he now, right? But I will say, like, is this Ganmark? Like, we'll talk a lot more about Ganmark here soon. But I will say about Ganmark, I really like his character because he's like, yeah, I'm a bad guy, I'm doing bad things. Like, he's like self-aware of what he's doing. So in his mind, he doesn't see any reason why, if he's letting his men burn place down, that everything has to be destroyed. Yes, he's the one in charge of it, but in his weird fucked up mind, yeah, he's like, I have to be a part of this anyways because it's a living and it's my job, but I can at least try to save some part of it, even though he knows that he's still being an asshole for it, which is what he says here. I just think that's so interesting because, I mean, he's not wrong, and I guess it is technically better for them to be saved. He is just a part of the problem, but is still aware of that and knows that he's too much of an asshole to break away. It's one of those little details that make a character who just seems like, I am a general man, I am the bad guy, who is then suddenly now he's like, yeah, I know I'm a bad guy, but it's more complicated than that, which is true. So
so much more complicated. Mm-hmm.
But we kind of know that he's kind of
gay. Okay.
You said gay?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we got that on our hands as well, which is sort of like a sexual deviancy in terms of the world that we're living in the First Law universe.
Wait, what do you mean? Can you elaborate a bit more?
Yeah, George, please.
George?
Well, he got kicked out of the Union Army just for, it's indiscretion.
Oh,
right.
Yeah. Well, okay, that was briefly mentioned, but okay, continue.
Well, that was it, isn't it? Like, he just feels rejected from everywhere, even though he's a very intelligent and clearly gifted tactical commander.
We don't know that yet by this point.
I mean, he's conquered a load of shit over Syria, even though he's just a disgraced, probably a lower officer.
Well, I was gonna say, he's conquered, but also you have to think about it. As far as we know, there haven't been any other battles since Monza's attempted murder, and we know that Monza's getting all the glory. So we don't know how good he is. We will know, but we don't know how good he is right now.
Well, he's good. He's good enough to be the at least secondary or maybe primary force behind, also coming to power.
Yeah, I will say, we've talked about how Orso is very good at picking the right people around him. That's what he's good at. He's very good at delegating. Number 2, Ganmark is in charge of Orso's actual forces.
That's true.
Which they have done a lot of stuff. So it is implied that even though he may not be as good as Monza, he's definitely competent at the very least.
Yeah, I mean, there hasn't been any implication that he's not as good as Monza. I'm just saying
he's got a work ethic. He's got the work.
Yeah,
he literally says it in his introduction, like in the first chapter. I will sweep the floors, and His Majesty will have the best of floors in Syria.
He's a working man.
we see a dedication from him. Absolutely. I'm just saying, as of right now, we've gotten tidbits from him, but nothing that really tells us what he's really like, which we'll see. But this is one that we are seeing. We're seeing a man that is very cultured. In a lot of ways.
At least he thinks he's cultured.
I mean, and the man he saved, valuable works of art from being destroyed. I would say he's cultured, right?
Yeah, but he was also the one that arranged the destruction.
Well, are you implying that gay people can't be cultured? Is that what you're saying? How dare
You're funny, Jeff. You're funny.
I know. Anyway, so he tells Shank that, better I have him than the Flames, and that the campaign season will begin, and he's going to be away to Visserine in the morning to take the city under siege. Now, that's some time away because obviously travel time. Skirmishes, sacks, burnings, march, countermarch, famine, pestilence, all that stuff. Main murder, all that other stuff. And then he goes, collective punishment of everyone for nothing, war. And to think he once dreamed of being an honorable man of doing good, which is interesting. We get some insight there into Gammark where he understands that he's not a good man on the basis of his past actions, right? And the actions he will undertake. And then he, Shank responds that like we all dream of that. Gammark goes, even you? And Shank goes, even me. And he takes out a knife, a little Gurkish butcher's sickle, and then he starts to carve a piece of wood, like a dog's head, kind of already carved in the front of it.
Which, knowing what we know, is really interesting. He says those lines right as he pulls that out. We'll go on that more later, but I think it's interesting
for sure. Gammark offers him wine, says it's from Cantaine's own cellar, but he says no. And Gammark leans over to Shank and he says, "Have you heard of Monscato Mercato?" And he says that he's heard, Captain General of the Thousand Swords, the most successful soldier. He heard that she was dead. And then he asked Shank if he could keep him secret. Shank says, "Of course, I have many hundreds of secrets, of course." And then Gammark goes, "Duke Orso ordered her death, hers and her brother's. Her victories made her popular in talents, too popular. His Excellency feared she might usurp his throne as mercenaries can do. Are you not surprised?" Shank says, "I've seen every kind of death and every kind of motive." And then Gammark goes, "Of course." And then he goes, "This was not a good death." And even though Shank says none of them are, which is, a very astute thing to say, Gammark says still, this was not good. This is bad. Like, I am assuming that Gammark, even though, actually, now that I think about it, during the whole thing with Benna and Monza, Gammark took no pleasure. He was just very matter of fact, Jesus Christ. All right, stab Benna, boom, Jesus, all right. And then even when they were about to toss Monza, he goes, let me just make sure real quick. Let's just get this over with. Let's not draw this out. But then they just tossed her. Remember that?
He even says that. He's like, that's that. Like it's a job.
Yes.
Job's done.
Yeah, it's just a job. And he didn't, enjoy it.
Yeah, it almost makes you wonder, too, we've dealt with some honorable people before, where they feel like, they're going to do a job and do it right. But, if you put 3 trees in Gammark's position, right?
He's going to be the same way.
He would be very similar. He may not have put himself in that position in the first place because he's not like that. But if he was told, hey, your chief says you have to do something, this is life or death, these people are going to take over, just get it done. Well, I don't like it, but yeah, I'll get it done. I would say that Gammark may not be super honorable, but he is honorable by first law standards.
Oh yeah, I would say, this is just another instance of honorable men forced to do dishonorable things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I would say he's less forced, but for sure, he's definitely not a cut and try villain like Monza wants to believe.
Well, think about it. He is in a way forced. Same thing as 3 trees in that little scenario you posited. Because think about it. If he refuses to take part, what do you think Orso's going to do? Order him dead.
He's going to get rid of him. Yeah.
Yeah. So in a way, he's forced without. There's implicit force, right, instead of explicit force.
Sure, that's a good point.
Yeah. And so
he's only got into that job because he's been demonstrated
the union.
Yeah, exactly. What I mean is he's probably demonstrated traits that would appeal to Orso, like ruthlessness and things like that.
And loyalty.
Well, yeah, I mean, but he they said in the beginning, exhibited good traits that was, respected in the union, got to a generalship, right? He was a general. And he was only kicked out because he's out here sucking cack.
Well, we don't know that he was general. They just call him his union, but he's also general.
Right, he's also general.
So he's from the union and he's a general. You don't necessarily know that he was a general in the union.
Yeah, I don't think he was a general. We would have heard about that. We know all of the generals that were inside the union, especially.
Yeah, they are very often referenced.
Yeah, but
he was an officer for sure.
I guess maybe, but I know he was well known as a good swordsman. Or is that a little bit later that comes into play?
Yeah, we'll deal with that later.
Okay. So anyway, he continues on with Shank. He says this was not a good death. 2 months ago, Orso's bodyguard vanished. Now, no surprise. The guy's a little bit goofy. Doesn't really care about his safety. Drinking. He's into vices and bad company and stuff. Thought nothing of it. And then he goes, but a month later, his banker was poisoned in Westport along with half his staff. That was a different matter because he knew that the banker took a very great deal to care for his safety. To poison him was a task of the greatest difficulty, carried out with professionalism and an exceptional lack of mercy. But he dabbled widely in the politics hysteria, and the politics hysteria is a fatal game with few merciful players. And then Valent and Balk, the bank themselves, suspected Gurkish rivals might be the motive. And then Shank goes, Valent and Balk. And Ganmark goes, are you familiar with the institution? And Shank goes, I believe they employed me once, but continue.
We're not gonna open that, yeah.
Yeah. And then General Ganmark says, and now Prince Ario has been murdered, stabbed in the very spot in which he stabbed Bena Mercado, then thrown down from a high window. Which I didn't put that together today. Oh, interesting.
I don't even think Monza intended that.
Yeah, probably not.
No, she didn't.
At first, she stabbed him in the thigh, or like where his groin, like the thigh met the groin or whatever. Then stabbed him in the neck, right? And then he fell out the window. She didn't even throw him out the window. That's right, because she didn't plan to throw him out, because that would have, tipped off everybody what was happening.
Did what it did.
Yeah, exactly what it did. So then Shanks goes, "You think Mercado is still alive?" And
it's very ironic that he says it like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Ganmark goes, well, a week after Ario died, Orso received a letter from Carlotte Dan Eider, who was the mistress of Ario. And they said that we had long suspected she was here to spy for the Union, but Orso tolerated it. Because, the Union is their confirmed ally. They helped them win the latest round of their wars against the Gurkish, and they both enjoy the backing of Valent and Balk the bank. And not to mention that the king of the Union is Orso's son-in-law. So naturally, we send each other good spies by way of neighborly good manners. It's fun. If one must entertain a spy, she might as well be a charming one, and Eider was undeniably charming. She was with Ario and Sapani. After his death, she disappeared, and then the letter. And it said that she was compelled through poison to assist the murderers. And they include their number, a mercenary named Nakomo Casca, and a torturer named Shiloh Vitari, and were led by none other than Mercado herself, very much alive. Shank says, oh, do you believe it? And he says, well, Eider had no reason to lie to her. She had no reason to fucking send a letter. And no letter is going to save her from the wrath of Orso if she's found, and she had to have known it. He said Mercado was alive when she went over that balcony. That much I am sure of because I have not seen her dead. And this is the part where I'm talking about where he, he would have made sure of it. And Shank goes, oh, so she's seeking revenge. And he goes, yeah, these are the years of blood. Everybody's seeking revenge. He goes, the Serpent of Talons, though, the Butcher of Capriel, who loved nothing in the world but her brother, if she lives, she is on fire with revenge. There are few more single-minded enemies a man can find. So Ganmark has a very, very, very healthy respect, we see, of Monza, right?
Yeah, he seems to have a very healthy respect of most things, actually.
Yes, but and so he's very even-keeled. He doesn't delude himself, it seems like.
Yeah.
So then Shank goes, then I should find this woman Vitari, this man Casca, and the serpent Mercado. And Ganmark goes, no one must learn that she might still be alive. If it was known in Talons that Orso was the one who planned her death, there could be unrest, revolt. She was very much loved. One of their own, risen through merit. And so as the wars drag on and on and on, and taxes, continue to increase, Orso is, less liked than he could be. So can he trust Shank to keep a secret? Shank says, yep. And so he says, there are associates of Mercado still in Talons. Perhaps one of them knows where she is. But what is Ganmark saying? It's Shank's business to find people. I do not need to tell you your business, do I? And Shank puts away his wood carving, his knife, and he goes, no. And that is where the chapter ends. Boys, how do you rate that one?
It introduces Shank as a POV character, but even on a second read through, there were a couple of look at this little thing, right? But it's also it's really jarring to be such a late time in the book to introduce a new character like this. It makes sense why, but I like the little lore tidbits here and there, and I like Ganmark a lot. So I think I think a 3 and a knuckle, because otherwise, I just don't think it's. I don't know. If it's a weird chapter, and I don't enjoy it as much. It's fun, but it's just kind of jarring for me, I guess, in the overall story.
I think this is just Joe trying to go at like the villain introduction. Whereas, the first trilogy didn't really have a villain.
Yeah.
In the traditional sense, anyway. There's no big bad guy. Except Mamoon, you could argue, but then he just
Mamoon, you snake!
and then he just gets blasted away. It's just like, okay. So I love the fact that he's going on with the villain introduction.
Mm-hmm.
But he's so mysterious and he's so badass that you just gotta love him, haven't you? So I'm gonna give this a 5.
You gave it a 5?
Yeah.
Okay. And our next segment will be our character spot. And boys, who is the person that we shine a lovely ray of light on today?
Here at the Circle of the World podcast, we love our Chamberlains, do we not?
Yes, we do. Yes,
we
we
have
do.
our own Lord Chamberlain himself, and this one is particularly funny. He's so posh. Like,
it's so funny. He's all about the mannerisms, the etiquette, right?
I mean, he's dedicated, right?
Almost to a hysterical degree. He's just absolutely like, yeah, you must go here, right here, not before the line. And definitely not after the line.
And arguably, in terms of the few Lord Chamberlains we see in this series, he may be the best. I mean, think about it. He's really, truly, like, he's dedicated. He's orating correctly. He's making sure everybody follows what they're supposed to do. He's following through with what Orso wants. Just saying. He knows his shit. He just seems like a goofball because he's dealing with somebody who's like, nah, fuck you.
Yeah. Very true. Very true. Mm-hmm. He's all about, following the book by the, he's doing things by the book, right?
Yeah, I mean, arguably, if you think about it, it's pretty disrespectful that Shanks would even do this, He's the guy's just trying to do a job,
Yeah.
He's like, I kneel no one. He's like, dude, what? You're going to get me in trouble. If I don't tell you this, I'm going to get in trouble. I'm just trying to do my job here. Shanks like, no, I bow to no one. He's like, well, okay, I get it, but, like, we're just trying to be proper. No, I don't bow to anyone. He's like, okay, dude, Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
I could just imagine this guy giving, like, a very, like a sorrowful shrug to also, like, I'll try my best.
Very true. Very true.
We don't even get a name. But, sometimes there are these silly characters that pop up that we like to highlight because we like the silly ones. They're great. They bring a lot of levity to the chapters.
The silly characters are the best.
Gotta love them.
That's all I have to say about him.
Yeah, he's a great guy. Great guy.
He's a great guy. Trying to do his job. Great guy.
Yep. Gotta love a Chamberlain, gotta love him.
He's a secretary for a fascist, but he's a great guy.
We don't. Whoa! Fascist? What are you talking about? Orso's just a regular monarch here, buddy.
But also, it's not just like fantasy Mussolini, right?
Where
you're so you're fucking.
Where the fuck
you do this with everybody? When we get to other characters in the series, you're gonna be like, if you think about it, a certain L-named character is basically Hitler.
Yeah, how is he? He's not going against anybody.
Mussolini.
I know. Because he's Italian.
Yeah, he's.
But trying to reunite the empire.
All Orso's trying to do is just unite Styria under one rule. That's it. He's not, going about things in a certain, he doesn't have a certain driving mindset.
Yeah, it doesn't sound fascist at all.
Well, all right. If that's the case, then if that's the case, then every monarch in history was a fascist.
That's
kind of the point that Joe's trying to make, I think.
I don't think.
Oh my God!
I think George is just going through a lot of the fallout of.
He's going through a lot of.
What I mean is to be a ruler, you have to be
This is
Ruthless.
this is British.
Yeah,
this is British guilt right here.
But
That's what this is.
fascism is different, man. That's like a style.
Yeah, but it's
governance.
a fine line, isn't it? It's a fine line between are these guys fat? Are they not?
I don't know. I gotta disagree with you, buddy.
All right. We're gonna move on, gentlemen.
We'll move on because I think George, he's a
Jeffrey,
soft.
Jeffrey, stop it, Jeffrey! Stop it, Jeffrey!
Okay, all right. So we'll move on to our final segment, which is our community interaction segment. We don't really have much in the way of this, but we all wanted to say that, like, hopefully by this time you have seen some movement. By the time this episode was released on our YouTube page, I will have uploaded at least 2 more videos. Well, not 2 more, another video to the Audience Chamber playlist, to YouTube and to our social media. And then those 2 have been in the chamber for a long time, as the boys will tell you. And finally got around to captioning them and releasing them. Hopefully you enjoy it. I know Harrison has a documentary analysis video to release, and also a couple other creative outlets that we're contemplating. George, Harrison, you want to talk about these real quick?
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna come up and be honest with it, as I probably am not going to, at least for a while. I'm kind of being stumped. I haven't released any other videos because I'm trying to complete that one video, but there's so much to do on it. I'm not sure I'm capable with the time that I have and the equipment and tools that I am capable of doing. So I am going to start making just some other videos to be more common on them, and just acknowledge the fact that some things are going to be over my head as much as I would like to finish it. And hopefully one day I will be able to do that. But right now I'm going to just focus on releasing some other more consistent content things that whenever I have some more free time on the weekend. So just to be honest,
It's really hard to make theories about these about this series, right? Isn't it?
Well, okay, who's doing that?
You calling me a quack? You calling me a quack, Harrison?
Jeff Johnson thought I did it, and he's like, I can't do it. If he would just start screaming at me, and he did. Oh shit! I'm sorry. Okay, I won't do it anymore. Oh, very serious.
All right, George, start over again and say something about, like, you just to say something. Come on, man, substantial.
I don't know. It's really hard to make fucking theory videos about this series because Joe gives so little information and it's so up to interpretation.
That means it's the perfect setting to create your own theories.
Yeah, I know, but you gotta have something solid to stand on, right?
Well, that's what tinfoil is for. I'm gonna kill Harrison. I'm gonna choke the shit out of him through this
I
microphone.
think Harrison's trying to say that we should wrap up.
Well, we're done almost, but yeah. Anyway,
Yeah,
George,
I will make a fucking.
Yeah.
I will make more videos when I feel like it.
yeah, and we'll all work together with George to help him kind of come up with some stuff. We have a couple of funny, I think funny or cool kinds of extracurricular videos we have in the pipeline. Hopefully you enjoy it, especially with George's dulcet tones, and we'll see how that happens. But yeah, hopefully we appreciate you all still kind of following us and commenting on our Reddit posts. We probably gonna get a little bit more active on that. We were talking about that just prior to this episode. We'll see. And yeah, we want to interact with the community some more. That's the gist of this. And that's our show, everybody. We want to thank you all again for listening and supporting this podcast. As you know, this is a passion project for the 3 of us, and your support really does mean a lot to us.
Join us next week as we cover Downwards and Rats in a Sack.
Make sure you follow us on all of our social media, and we have a website. It's circleoftheworld.com.
And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any podcast app that you use. And please make sure to rate and review this podcast. Thank you all again for listening.
I do not kneel.